everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast, focusing on Canadian rugby. I'm Stu Hardy, joined, as always, by Derek Brissett. Derek, we've just had the Rugby Sevens World Cup. What did you make of it?
I thought it was good. It was definitely the tournament. I think last week we were talking about maybe we had some issues with the format. Maybe we can revisit that a little bit later. But the issues and stuff with the format kind of came, I think our concerns, I feel like, kind of came true in watching the tournament. Especially, but I pretty much had it on. I mean, I worked on Friday, so I didn't really watch a whole lot on Friday. Got caught up on the Canada games versus Zimbabwe and France, and then the women's game against China. I think that was also Friday. So got caught up on those. But kind of mostly watched it all day Saturday, and then watched the Sunday I watched the Canada games, and then the final, the semifinals and the finals for both the men's and the women's. Overall, it seemed it was a really fun tournament. Some nice surprises. I thought Ireland, obviously, kind of going through the way they did to all the way to third. That was really nice because that's like a super new program, all things considered, right? They're only like 6-7 years old, I think.
Yeah.
Australia on the women's side, just, I guess, probably doing something they'll never be able to do again, winning a World Cup, the Commonwealth Games, and the Seven Series in the same year. Because, I mean, what are the odds that those overlap again? Actually, I don't know. Is that good odds of overlapping again as the Commonwealth Games in the same?
Well, not so much overlapping, because I think Commonwealth Games and the World Cup happen in the same year. But the chances.
Oh, okay.
But so the odds of success of winning all three is low.
Yes, yeah, no.
I think that's what you meant. So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you have to make sure you're good on the Seven Series every 4 years. You have to plan that one out too. But yeah, I can't see. I think what my issue is right now, especially we got the Women's World Cup coming up soon. Right?
Yes,
and they're calling it the Rugby World Cup 2021, and it's so confusing. Because it's like, just call it 2022. That's the year it's happening, and it's fine. The Olympics did that too, because it was still like Tokyo 2020, even though they played that in like 2022. 2021. Oh yeah, and then the Winter Olympics were in Korea, and that was still off a year or something, right?
No, that was
that happened in the right year.
The Olympics,
year. That was earlier this year. See,
time is a flat circle.
Exactly. I feel like all of the events that were like supposed to come out, like they're supposed to happen in like 2020 or 2021, that have all been pushed back. I can't, it's confusing me with the stuff that's supposed to actually happen in 2022, and it's all just kind of blending together. So the Commonwealth Games and the World Cup of Sevens normally happens in the same year.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so never mind Australia, just go do it again in 4 years. That's not a big deal. I was thinking, hey, once in a lifetime chance to do that. Because I mean, there was some weird once in a lifetime things with the sports world because of COVID and stuff. Like the Montreal Canadiens won the Western Conference Championship trophy in the NHL. They don't play in the Western. It's wild, but they somehow won that because of the new format, right? So it's so like there were some weird things that happened. I was thinking this would be another one, but I guess I'm wrong. I need to pay more attention to things, I guess, too.
Yeah, let's change our clocks. Let's not go back a few years. Let's just go back to the weekend just gone. This is a review of Canada's results from the games. So on the men's side, we start off with a preliminary round. That was against Zimbabwe, which Canada won 31-7. And then on the same day came the round of 16. And this was a really narrow game, but it was a loss, eliminating Canada from the cup competition as they lost 12-19 to France. They were then placed in the challenge quarterfinals. They were up against Uruguay. And again, this was a narrow loss, with Uruguay coming out, and the result exactly the same, 12-19. Then on the second game of the second day was for the positions for 13th to 16th. and that was against Wales, which Canada won 33-19, with their final game on the Sunday being for 13th place against Chile, which they also won 12-10. And that confirmed that Canada's final place would be 13th in the competition out of 24 teams. As for the women, there were fewer teams, so they go straight into the round of 16. And that was opened with a win against China, 24-5. Then they were in the Cup quarterfinals against the USA. And again, it's these narrow losses as Canada fell 7-10. So on the final day, it was the Canada women were in the 5th to 8th qualification games, and they got a win over England 22-7, which put them in the 5th place final up against Fiji. And this wasn't a narrow loss, to put it nicely. This was an absolute demolishing. The final score, Fiji 53, Canada 0. And they finished 6th in a competition of 16 teams. It's also worth mentioning that the Toronto Arrow's very own Brock Webster, along with Steve Anosai from Samoa, were the joint highest points scorers in the men's tournament as well. So, Derek, it is 13th for the men out of 24, 6th for the women out of 16. And, since the Olympics last year, we've seen a lot of senior players, veterans of the game, legends of the game, if you will, step aside, and it's time for the young guns to come in, step up to the plate. And, they've had opportunities. They've had the World Series, obviously. They've had the Commonwealth Games and now the World Cup. Now, obviously, unlike, say, coming off 2016, where they would have had 2 years to prepare for this obviously, because of reorganization of the Olympics, has just been just over a year. So what are your impressions from Canada's final positionings in this tournament?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think, like we said, I think part of it is there's a bit of a strangeness to this format, right? So looking at, the opponents that Canada had: Zimbabwe, France, Uruguay, Wales, Chile, at least on the men's side. Maybe we'll touch on the women later. But I think, like, kind of looking at that, it's, ultimately at the end of the day, like, if you look at their record, it's they finished 3-2. Right. So they were, they're above 500 at the tournament. They realistically, you look at the slate of opponents that they had, right? Zimbabwe, team that they should beat them handedly, might I add. Zimbabwe, also sick jerseys.
Yeah.
Their kits are unreal. The numbers you can see from the space station, it's outstanding. I love it. They have some great kit there. Zimbabwe, big fans of them during this tournament. Anyway, so Zimbabwe, team that they should beat them. Wales, a team that they should beat. Wales sevens, not exactly up to the 15s team standard. Although they also have nice jerseys too, the green dragon kind of pattern on them, it's a little bit better. But Wales and then Chile, another team they should beat. That game was a little bit more narrow, but it's like, you kind of have that match with Uruguay, and Uruguay is maybe a little bit of an upset. But then Uruguay goes on to beat the United States, who had a dreadful tournament, I guess, on the men's side, given their expectations. Samoa lit them up in the round of 16. But I think you kind of look at those games and it's like, they won games that they should have won, or they won games against teams they should have won, or they should have beat. That game against France was close. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you put there was that very like unusual sevens tactic attempt at the end of the first half to do a driving maul off the line out. And they nearly pushed that over. If they get that, like, that maybe is a difference in the game, and unfortunately didn't work out. But also in that game, you can see them, like, really taking advantage of, like, some of the French mistakes in that game. The biggest one probably being Brock Webster's try, when, there was the restart. France had the restart, and then the kick went like nowhere near 10. So France all kind of stopped playing, I think, assuming that it would just be a penalty or whatever. And then Lockie Kratz decided I'm going to catch this ball and break through the line. And then Webster obviously finished it with some great speed. So it's like, it's a good heads up play, right? To not just wait for that whistle and take advantage of, a French team that's, maybe wasn't necessarily prepared for that or expecting just to have a penalty called. But they made some really good plays like that during that game. And the game against France was close. And it's just like I said, the format to this tournament, in my opinion, kind of weird, right? So they lose to France, which basically eliminates them from the tournament.
Yeah.
Right. So they end up playing games of all the other teams that lost. So you avoid you avoid a lot of the big dogs in this World Cup. Right.
Yeah.
So which I guess is just the way it is. But as we have talked about before, with the 15s team or really any team, it's like you play the guys that you can only play who's in front of you.
Yeah.
Right. And I think based on who was in front of them, they did well. Webster looks like he's going to be a superstar. I don't know if he wants to be a superstar in sevens or if he wants to be a superstar in 15s, or if he wants to try to be a superstar in both. But regardless of what his decisions are going to be to where he wants to focus his time and energy, that he was just unreal the whole tournament. Unreal. As you said, he was one of the highest point scorers in the tournament. It's not just like the scoring tries. His speed is outstanding, but he's also using that defensively and stuff too. He made some great tackles. Josiah Mora too, I thought played really well throughout the tournament. He had a really nice play in that France game too, early when he came over and helped Berna. Berna already had the guy kind of wrapped up, and Mora came over to force a knock on to keep the game 0-0. Canada went back the other way and scored. Like like I said, there's some really good moments from that France game. I think Mora played well like throughout the entire tournament too. Berna's looking like he's developing to be a guy that can be, on the team, like, a constant stalwart. I still like Thiel. And it's obviously a lot of experience for a lot of the younger guys too, kind of getting into a really big stage like the World Cup. So I think I think ultimately there was a lot of good things that came from the men's team. I think finishing 13th seems about par for the course on where they are. I think they were like 13th or 14th on the 7 series standings at the end of the year. But I mean, hey, 3-2, it's a weird format. They have a better record than South Africa at this tournament. So
yeah,
they have a better record than South Africa and Australia. Australia finished 4th, 2-2. Canada won 3 games. So I mean, it's a goofy format, but I keep saying that. I'm sorry, but I liked it. You have any thoughts on the men's tournament, and then we could shift gear to the women's side?
Yeah. So just as a quick check, Canada are actually 14th in the World Series. So,
yeah, so
13th.
That's like their range, I think, right now. Like,
yeah,
I'm not surprised by that.
I think it has been a case of things have been against the team. Obviously, the point I mentioned before about it's not been 2 years to prepare since the Olympics. It's only been just about 1. You have the Commonwealth Games as well, which, not as big as the World Cup, but, still have some significance. You are playing the majority of the sevens teams in the world, so may as well continue with that. But I don't know. I think it is also as well is that unlike the women's game against Fiji, which was a blowout, I think it's like the hope that kills you, and I guess that happens for like any sevens team or competition. But so I think 13th is fine. But again, I will say as soon as they lost to France, my interest just shot down. I wasn't as engaged
because of the format of the tournament, or
format. Yeah,
I
mean, we also have to mention logistically, it's very hard to follow some of these games when they start at 3 a.m, and it's a bit, and I know again that's just the logistics. You're in a different time zone. They have to start as early in the day as possible, and that just means that you're just gonna miss some things, which I understand. It's just first world problems more than anything.
I'll say this in response to your first world problems, as you have highlighted here.
Yeah.
Absolutely love the way CBC covered this.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. One, obviously, cbcsports.ca having, just the live stream up all day is great. But the fact that they also go through and take the time to cut the Canada games individually, and they're all just like whatever 20 to 30 minutes, I guess.
Yeah.
The women's game, the game against the US, the women's game against the USA was a little bit longer because they played for like 3 or 4 minutes after a half ended. But like, so that one was a little bit longer, but it's like all the games are just there. They're kind of in chunks. So if like you said, like if sure, like maybe you're not going to wake up at 3:00 in the morning to watch some of these games, but when you do roll out of bed on, at 8, 9 or 2 p.m. whenever, depending on how you decide to do your Saturdays, you have the option. It's like you can rewatch the entire tournament if you so choose, or you can, like, CBC already pulls out all the Canada games and stuff. So if you just want to go back, which is basically what I did, I went any Canada game that I missed because it was, super early in the morning or I was at work, which was the case on Friday. I just went to CBC and was like, all right, I've got to get caught up on the Canada games, and they just have the Canada games readily available. So I did love that. I do kind of agree with your I guess your assessment that it's like, and it is kind of what we were concerned about when we were last talking about this, where it's like if your team loses or whatever, like what does that do for like your interest and stuff? Because you're not really playing for anything other than just like you're not really playing for anything other than you just got to make, I guess, make a day out of it, right? Because it'd be tough to sell tickets to a half an hour long game, on the third day just for the final or something. So you need something to make more of an event out of it, which is realistically what the other games all are for. But I think, you know what I mean? I wonder too if that helps certain players or something where it's like, okay, cool, like go out and try stuff without, any like without like kind of worrying or whatever. Go out, have some fun. They are, as much as we've complained about the format, right? It's like they are great development games, like opportunities to do that, opportunities to play more, which is a good thing for the players and the coaching staffs themselves. Like from that point of view, I do kind of like, I get playing the games. But yeah, they all kind of lose a little bit of their luster. There was a great Zimbabwe South Korea game that the teams just traded tries back and forth the whole game. It ended up, I think South Korea ended up winning by 2, right? Because Zimbabwe missed a conversion after they scored like a late try. But it was like, that's a really good game. So it's like the games on the losing side of the bracket were excellent. Like they were entertaining. But yeah, a little bit of a lack of luster because it felt like I guess a little bit of, they lacked a little bit of really any, I guess, sense of occasion or anything, because you are kind of waiting for like, the Australia Fiji games or the, Ireland New Zealand in the quarterfinal or in the semifinals or something like that. But I don't know. I'm not. My whole thing though is like, I'm not sure what you do to the format for the Sevens World Cup. I know I'm complaining about it. I'm saying I don't really like it, but I'm also like, I'm trying to think of what to do for it too. Mainly because, like you kind of said, like if you got to day 3, right, and it's like there was only 6 of the 28 games that were played on day 3, so 3 on the men's side, 3 on the women's side, right, were critical for actually determining the champion. There was 2 semifinals on each side and then the final. Right, out of the 28 games that were played. But at the same time, it's like you probably can't just be like, yeah, we're gonna play these games. It's like it'd be tough to sell like it's like selling like tickets like it's an all-day festival makes a lot more sense than being like New Zealand, Fiji, the final for the World Cup of Sevens, and sell tickets to one game. Like that doesn't make any sense either, right? So you need other games, or you need something to fill time to make people like tickets are worthwhile. So, but like I said early, I think like the normal 7 series format where you have a bit of a pool stage. And then you have, you know what I mean? You have a bit of a pool stage, and then you kind of have your knockouts and like your offshoots, like the challenge and the bowl and stuff. I think is still a better format than, because it is kind of weird. Just like you said, it's like Canada played 4 games in this tournament after they were eliminated. Right, which are 3 games or whatever, right? And you know, there's teams that did really well as far as a win-loss record that I don't know, like you feel like if you're like England, do you feel good about being 4-1 or like 3-1, despite the fact that you're England and are probably pissed that you lost to Ireland in the first round or in the round of 16, right? So I don't know. Women's side though, Stu, any thoughts on the women's side?
So I think the women have been in a similar position as the men. They obviously have had significant figures in the sevens team resign since the end of the Olympics, and now they've only had about a year to get a sevens team to compete at the World Cup, essentially. I think the loss to Fiji is a blight, but is the exception. I mean, Fiji, I'm just trying to go back through their game, because they conceded against Japan, they conceded against France, which was their only loss of the tournament, and then they went 2 games without conceding a single point. So I think Fijiana were spectacular, and to lose to them in such a way, whilst disappointing on paper, just shows like how far Fijiana have come over the past few years. You know, a victory over England to play in the 5th place playoff, I thought that was fantastic. A great comeback, especially after falling so short against the United States. And obviously the dominant win against China, you know, to set things off on the right track. So, yeah, I'm not disappointed. I mean, obviously, I would have preferred them to be in the cup final or the semi-finals, but you know, this is sport. This is just how it comes about. So, and obviously finishing 6th out of 16 teams, I think was, you know, again, it's the area I expected them to be in. So yeah, Canada finished 7th in the latest round of the World Series. So, you know, finishing 6th there, 7th in the World Series, you know, it all works out, I'd say. And, you know, I've got no qualms against it. I think that, you know, they're on the right track at the moment. And, you know, it's one of these things that's just going to take time. Obviously, they now have to, both teams, I should say, now have to turn their focus to Olympic qualification, which, if I am correct, and I'm probably not, is that just means that they have to finish within the top 4 in the World Series, or they'll have to go in as a regional qualifier. And to be honest, after the RAN qualifiers they had earlier this year, that doesn't look to ever be something that will be in jeopardy for Canada or the USA in North America. So
I doubt Canada's finishing top 4 at the 7 series next year. So we'll qualifier seems to be the likely route.
Well, that's the thing. You never know who's going to retire between now and then, and who's going to step up, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, we'll just have to wait this one out, I believe, and we'll just have to see how that all unfolds. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that the sevens format does need to change. I'm not entirely sure what it means, but I mean, if you're a fan and you have tickets to any of the stages of the World Series, you are watching for the men's competition in total 45 games per round, and then in the World Cup you're watching 52. So that's only 7 more games for the men's tournaments alone. For the women's, it's even worse because you're going from watching, say, you went to the Canada Women's Sevens last year and you're looking forward to going again at BC Place next year, and you're expecting for the 12 teams 34 games across the weekend. But if you got tickets for the World Cup, you get 32. So that's 2 fewer games for a tournament that's supposed to be more important and has 4 more teams in it. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I'm looking at things like the Commonwealth Games, like the World Sevens series, and saying like, well, if these things are played
what is the format for the Commonwealth Games?
It's very similar to the World Seven series, I believe. So yeah, obviously there are fewer teams, or different teams, I should say. But yeah, it's the men's competition is 4 pools of 4 teams. So that's 16. So yeah, same as the World Series. And then you have the quarterfinals, you have the semi-finals, and then you have the gold and bronze medal matches. You also have ranking places for 5th and for 9th, and even a match that goes away for 13th place as well. You don't have things like 15th place or 9th place, or sorry, you do have for 9th place. You don't have it for like 11th place or 7th place. You just have if you basically get knocked out of the quarterfinals, you go for 5th and 8th, and if you lose that game, which is what Canada did, you don't get a 7th place playoff. You just go straight to 5th place playoff, which I think makes sense, because if these games don't count for anything after the medals, then you do want to say, oh, where would I finish? If it was just these 4 teams left for 5th to 8th, who's going to come out 5th? And then those, it's winner stays on. That I'm fully there for.
I think, I think that's what this tournament is kind of missing. Like, you need a way, whether it's like, and like a pool stage, I think is probably the way to do it, but you need a way to keep teams like theoretically in contention longer, or at least not like eliminated from winning longer.
Yeah. Right? Like, I've had a quick think about this, and let's say, okay, there's 24 teams in the men's World Cup, and let's say you do it in a pool stage, and it's 4 teams per pool. That's 6. That's 6 teams. That's 6 pools total, each with 4 teams in it.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, after this, instead of going to quarterfinals, we go to round of 16. So we'll keep it like that, so we know where we're going from here. So top 2 teams from each pool automatically go through. That leaves 12, which means that 4 of the 3rd place teams then have to basically ensure that they score more tries, prevent more tries as they come, get a better points difference. And because you can have it in a sense where games can happen at the same time, I'd say for a World Cup. And for this, you would ideally need like dual broadcasting to go on. So I know, for example, in the UK, and I'm just going to use the FIFA World Cup, because they do something similar, or they did something similar to avoid any clashes, is they would have games held at the same time of like 2 pools. So neither side knew who they would be guaranteed to be facing when it came to the round of 16. So that, go on.
No.
So that's let's just say there's in one pool there's England versus Samoa, another pool there's South Africa versus Tonga, and they know that if one of them wins, they finish second and they'll automatically go through. But the loser knows that the other pool needs to have a certain number of points for them to win, and they need to have a certain number of points for them to go through. But because both games are happening at the same time, you can't be fed information at like halftime to say that, oh, England are beating Samoa by like 10 points, so you need to make sure that you win by 11 points or something like that. It's very quick, and in doing so, you can. I may have just spun this too far and made it like far too confusing.
I think.
Okay, so
I think you definitely did. I was. Right. I feel like.
All right, let me go back and let me just say. Okay, so six pools, 4 teams. Top 2 automatically go to the round of 16. The top, the 4 best third place finishers then go into the round of 16, and from that point onwards, you can continue with the format that is currently in place for the World Cup. So you just go round of 16, winner stays on from this point onwards. You can have like the ranking matches for 17th to 24th.
That's fine. I feel like in your previous assessment, you were kind of like getting way off into like we need 2 stadiums or a stadium that has 2 fields. But the fields can't see each other. Also, there can't be internet because like you can't.
No, fans can, but teams can't.
The teams would. Totally would.
Okay, when the FIFA World Cup happens later this year, you'll understand what I mean. But until then,
I don't like anything that soccer does, so I discount it immediately.
Well, Canada's in the men's FIFA World Cup, so
they are.
You may have to swallow that statement later.
Just because Canada's in the FIFA World Cup doesn't automatically mean I like soccer. It automatically means I'll probably watch 1 or 2 soccer games.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm getting at. But I think the initial stages of the World Cup need to follow other sevens competitions and keep it as a pool stage.
Yeah, it's got to be a pool stage.
And you can do like assorted rankings, because I know for the World Cup, what they do is they'll take the teams that have been in like the World Series and see their series points over the previous 2 years, and then they can combine them to put them in the rankings. And then for the other teams, it's just regionally ranked for them, and then they can put, because that's what they did for the preliminary round. But then you just have teams competing in like throughout the Friday of this tournament. And, I think also having more teams makes it a bigger competition and makes it worthy of being the World Cup. But I'm also of the mindset that at that point, maybe make it like a week-long thing. So it's a case of you have some of the pool stages of the men's game on the Monday, then you switch to women's on the Tuesday, then you get final stages of the pool game of the men's pool on Wednesday and like the round of 16. Then you have the women's 5th to 8th or quarterfinals or quarterfinals.
I think that's, I mean, ultimately, I feel like we've gone on between 2 episodes now a little on the format, but
of how we would fix the sevens.
I think the biggest thing is it's like I feel like the Rugby World Cup Sevens needs to feel bigger than a 7 series tour stops, right? It's like it needs to feel bigger than that, and I'm not sure this accomplishes that, or like, you know what I mean? I'm not.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We're not planners at World Rugby or the World Rugby Sevens. This is just suggestion.
We are fans, right? So it's like watching it, watching the form. Like, I mean, I'm just going off of what you said. You said you kind of checked out once Canada lost, or whatever, right? Which quite frankly isn't good, especially if you host a podcast on Canadian rugby. That's not
I suppose so.
You should probably watch those games. Then we can talk about them on the podcast. I also kind of feel like just over the course of this podcast, we've spent a lot of time talking about this format, and we've kind of neglected the women's team a little bit.
Yeah,
We haven't really spent much time on them, but so I think like you did kind of mention that game against England was really good.
yeah,
Obviously, I think they were losing 7-0 pretty much the entire first half. And then Decouvre scored 2 tries on either side of halftime, and that really kind of opened the floodgates a little bit. And Canada dominated the second half. I think England barely touched the ball in that second half.
yeah. Well, England didn't score, which obviously didn't help
Yeah,
them.
but not only did they not score, I think that they touched the ball like twice. Like it wasn't as far as like possession and stuff goes, Canada dominated that
Yeah,
area of the game. I thought like Kira Wardley, I thought had a really good tournament. So that's exciting to see some of the I guess the newer players post Olympics kind of really starting to step up. Olivia Apps, one of the I guess one of the players that's really stuck around through the Olympics and into that. She had a really good tournament too. I thought Chrissy Scurfield made a really nice tackle in that USA game toward the end of the first half to really keep that game tight. That, of course, that tackle kind of kicked off an extra like 4 minutes of playing in which no team was able to score anything. But, her tackle, her ability to kind of chase down the I'm blanking on who that American player was. I'm sorry, but like the American player that kind of had a huge line break toward the end of the half, and she chased her down really well.
Alona Ma.
No, it wasn't her. No, it wasn't her. At the end, it's before all that like post
Okay.
like buzzer. It's like the last. It's like the last real play, or not the last real play. It was like the last play before the clock actually says 0 and starts counting back upwards.
Yeah.
So that was I thought that was really good too. But yeah, like I thought even that game against the USA, like it's a tight game. It could have gone either way. Unfortunately, it didn't. So I mean, I think it's good to see too. I think like Busa and I thought also looked really good. And maybe another player that's kind of like Brock Webster that maybe is going to have to kind of decide which way they want to lean as far as 15-7 goes, or I guess maybe back and forth is going to work. Right. And so I mean ultimately overall I thought it's I think the standards that have been kind of set by like the Canadian Sevens teams put especially the women's team started off with a really high standard. And then I feel like events of the past few years have maybe dropped the expectations a lot for the teams on both sides. So I mean, I don't know, like it is one of the things I think I could do kind of think about. It's like pre 2020 Olympics. Would we be happy with the Canada women's team finishing 6th at a World Cup? Maybe not. Similarly on the men's side, would we be happy with that finish? Maybe not. But I think definitely over the past year, I think it's been a lot more acceptance of where Canada is in the world standings on all the rugby codes and stuff right now. And I think given the new kind of younger teams and stuff, I think like overall, like I mean, yeah, I was pretty happy with both the men's and the women's team in the tournament, and look forward to seeing everybody kind of keep developing and keep growing, right? Because can only go up from here.
Well, yeah,
Rugby
absolutely.
Canada's new slogan, right? Can only go up from here. So
yeah, I think there's some lessons to be taken away from it, but both teams finished a place higher than they were in the World Series, so that is a positive. And as these teams develop, yes, I agree. I think that especially for the men's side, I think there's this prevailing idea that there now needs to be, for players of a certain age, you need to say, right, it's 15s or 7s. It can't be both. And to develop as the better or as the best like 7s team, I think you need to commit fully to 7s. And I understand that there's like financial implications by saying that, but when you look at other nations like South Africa, New Zealand, I'd say England, but they're merging into Great Britain again. So I think that's a bad example. But in the understanding of if you have players develop on the 7 series, they become better sevens players. Whilst if you have them switch between 15s and 7s, they don't necessarily become the best versions of either.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
The games are similar, but still very different.
Yeah.
That's ultimately where that goes. Yeah.
Well, I guess we should also mention that there were other teams playing in this competition as well, because there were the new world champions crowned for both men's and women's in 2022. In the men's side, the final was Fiji, New Zealand, and they are Olympic champions and now world champions as well. Fiji securing their title. New Zealand obviously comes second place, and third, the surprise of the entire World Cup, Ireland finishing bronze medal. Squidge Rugby pointed out this is Ireland's first time ever they have made it past the quarterfinals in any form of rugby union. Or it should be more accurate, first time they've won a quarterfinal.
Well, you can't get past the quarterfinal without winning, so yeah, it's.
Well, there was a case. It's basically
that's hilarious to me, man.
It's really weird to like explain it, but in the sense of there was a previous Sevens World Cup that didn't have quarterfinals just because of like the number of participants. So it was really because it was so small, Ireland made it to the semi-finals without actually playing a quarterfinal. It's really
that's going to be the only way Ireland gets past the quarterfinal in the Men's World Cup next year too, is if they decide to only make the tournament 4 teams and then they're automatically there.
And in the women's team, it was Australia, as we mentioned, that came out on top. The Black Ferns or the Black Fern Sevens getting the silver medal, and third was France. So I've got a question for you, Derek, because in the history of women's sevens, there's only been 2 winners. It's Australia or New Zealand. In the men's sevens, there have been only 4 nations that have won the Rugby Sevens Men's World Cup, or the Melrose Cup, as it's actually really known.
It does have a name, yes.
Yeah, the Melrose Cup. Do you know what those teams are?
Well, first of all, I think we're good. We'll circle back. Is the Melrose Cup named after the Melrose Rugby Club?
That is correct. We will be talking about Melrose later.
Hey, here we go.
But don't avoid the question. Can you name all 4 men's teams, or men's nations, I should say, that have won the Melrose Cup?
Fiji.
Correct.
New Zealand.
Also correct.
I want to say South Africa.
No.
Ooh. Wow. Dang. Australia?
No. They have made it to the final, but neither have won the Melrose Cup.
Okay. Apparently I need to work on my sevens knowledge here. So I guess I would go Great Britain / England, depending on what the team was called at any given point in time.
So Great Britain has never competed in the World Cup. But I will give you England. England
all right.
The inaugural winners. And one more nation.
France.
No, it's Wales. Wales won the Melrose Cup in 2009, beating Argentina in the final 19-12.
What happened to that team?
They won.
They won and just stopped playing, or how did?
Well, remember it's 2009. A lot of the guys that were competing have since retired.
Well, I would assume so, but what happened to the program? They're not exactly a great team at the moment.
That is true, but I think it was more a case of one of these things of circumstance. And again, this was back in 2009. They did have a pool stage, and it was certain teams advanced to the cup final or the cup quarterfinal, some to the plate, some to the bowl. Wales was one of those teams that advanced and beat New Zealand in the quarterfinals 14-15, beat Samoa in the semifinals 19-12, and then beat Argentina in the finals again 19-12.
Is this your way of getting back to me? Because I tweeted at you that I was going to remind you that Canada beat Wales again.
Yeah. No, it's all fine. It's all good. That was just water in the bridge. That was just a bit of test of rugby history. I think you and the viewers all appreciate.
You know, I'm just picturing there is somebody listening to this that is absolutely screaming at in their car or wherever they're listening to this that I did not get that immediately. So
actually,
apologize to that person.
One of the players in the 2009 Wales team was Rhys Webb, who has unfortunately yet to appear for Wales in the 15s Rugby World Cup. But you never know. 2023 just around the corner may bust out the cobwebs and be back on the team, providing there haven't been any. Well, probably would be major injuries, but that is something that we can discuss at another time. Let's take it away from South Africa. Let's bring it back to Canada, because the Arrows have been very busy over the past week. They have made a number of signings, one more domestic than the other two, but here we go. So the first signing is for a Canadian, and it is for Cole Davis, the winger who joins from Rugby ATL. He did play for the Austin Gilgronis back in 2021. He was on the team at the start of 22, never selected, and then he was traded to Rugby ATL for the final few games of the season. And now he is back across the border, back playing for the Canadian outfit. So welcome to Toronto, Cole Davis. From New Zealand, we have Micah Torrance-Reid from the Manawatu Turbos. He was joining as a I'd say center. That is completely incorrect.
That is completely incorrect. He is a lock.
Yes.
A lock. And a blindside flanker, according to his highlight reel. So he's a blindside flanker.
A utility forward, it appears then. But can hope join other flankers such as Mike Shepherd as well. So, great build. Because that's the thing. The Arrows have been signing a lot of backs and very little news on the forwards. So good to see that another forward has been signed. And from Australia, this was announced today on September 13th. Fabian Goodall, a wing and centre, so a versatile back, has been signed from Eastwood. Former rugby league player, played for Fiji, the National Rugby League team, and then switched to Union in 2016. And according to the press release, he'll be moving over with his wife and young children. So they all get to experience the coldness of a Toronto Canadian winter. So all for one and one for all. But yeah, welcome those guys. Looking forward to seeing them make the pitch in 2023. But that is not all that the Arrows have been up to. They have announced a professional development partnership with Scotland's Melrose Rugby Club. Told you we'd bring it back to Melrose at some point. So the partnership features an exchange program between the two organisations, and will see Arrows player and development opportunities in Scotland's Tennet National League Division 1. Conversely, Melrose players also stand to gain experience with the Arrows senior and academy teams. And this seems to have developed from the academy game in Burlington earlier this summer, in which the Arrows Senior Academy played Melrose Rugby, who were doing a tour at the time. According to Mark Winokur, it says both sides quickly saw the potential that could come from working together, and with the bulk of the Scottish National League One schedule leading right into the MLR preseason, this partnership has the capacity to pay dividends both short-term and long-term. And, maybe this is something that absolutely beneficial, as with the partnership with Hong Kong's Rugby Union and their men's premiership. Play because the off season for MLR is so long. You know, going overseas, playing in for Melrose, playing for the Hong Kong Men's Premiership. It's giving more and more players opportunity to develop their skills, play in a different environment, learn under different coaches. You know, all this information, all this development, something they're drawing in, they're learning new things that they can bring back and, you know, hopefully implement successfully into their gameplay with the Arrows in 2023. So I think the only thing we need now is just the confirmation that Adrian Wadden's coming back in 2023 as well. Then we definitely know that
he's on loan. You can't be on loan if you're not coming back. If you're on loan, that implies that one team owns your contract to loan you.
That is true, but again, they haven't actually announced that press release.
That's true.
Although knowing our luck, this is being recorded on the Tuesday. The Arrows do have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to announce that Adrian Wadden will be back for the 2023 season.
Yeah, so I mean, I think overall, partnership with Melrose, it's cool. I mean, I think my thoughts on it are basically the exact same thing about when we talked about Hong Kong last week. Nice to get some guys extra playing time. Probably cool personal experience for the individual players themselves, being able to, you know, go overseas and play rugby in a different part of the world, right? Like, it'll probably be really fun for O'Neill and Richardson to actually do that. And you know, hopefully maybe the Arrows can benefit a little bit by getting some of the players back on exchange. So I mean, it's fun.
Yeah, it'll also be interesting to see. I guess this now means we have to keep our eye on like Melrose's progression during the National League Division 1, because then we can spot which players that the Arrows could potentially get for the 2023 season.
To be honest, I think that's kind of maybe like a really underrated element of the partnership too. If all the clubs involved kind of do it right. Like, I mean, last week, Stu, like we were having a conversation talking about how you can watch the Hong Kong Premiership, which I'm sure is something that prior to this, we would never even think about watching or, you know, seek out to watch. Right. But now that you're like, oh, hey, Adrian Wadden's playing a game for Sandy Bay. If that's available, I'll probably watch it or do it. Right. So it's a little bit of marketing for that. Hopefully that kind of goes the other way too. Like the people from Hong Kong or those that are fans of Melrose Rugby, you know, might maybe see some of the players that have represented their club playing for the Arrows and want to check out some Arrows games or, you know, get some Arrows merch or whatever. Right. So I think that's a benefit too. The new signings, I think it was really disappointing to see Cole Davis just kind of not in the lineup at all for Austin last year. I was really excited when I saw that he got traded to Atlanta. And he played well for Atlanta in the second half or toward the second half and the end of their season there. You know, and you know, kind of one of those players. It's like obviously, you know, there's, you know, we know for sure like a few things like, you know, Gaston Mirez not coming back, right? So there's definitely some holes in the back three that need to be filled, and I think Davis seems like he'd be a guy that can fit that quite well. Fabian Goodall, you know, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know a ton about Fabian Goodall and Torrance Reed, but you know, America's Rugby News, when they had their write-up, had a highlight reel, and it's 7 minutes of him just running over people. It's delightful. I think it's one of those things that I like the signing because I think it's one of those things that it's like, so he's a league guy, or you know, played international level league for Fiji, right? Played league for a while. It said like, you know, he was part of like the Sea Eagles and Parramatta Eels camp, I think. At some point, right? So so that's obviously great. So he's a league guy, and league guys that come to Union tend to be super aggressive. And like really aggressive ball carriers, which I think, you know, might have been something the Arrows were kind of missing a little bit last year. Right. Which I like. It's like watching his his highlight video that was on America's Rugby News. It's like it's 7 minutes. I don't think there's a sidestep in it. It is, I have the ball. It's like, you can stand there. I will run over you. If you happen to pull me down as well, then so be it. But there's a good chance that I'm going to keep running after. Also, as part, I think sometimes too, as part of being a league guy, it's like they're really good at staying on their feet, because that's super important in league, because you don't want to give up those tackles.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like the league guys tend to be pretty good at that too, right? And then obviously, he seems to have transitioned to union and is doing well. So I like that. Like you said, it's probably need a little bit more information on like who's coming back or any more signings. Maybe, later in the year we can do our traditional, like, way too early to pick the Arrows starting 15 kind of podcast again, and see where he slots in. But overall, I mean, from a 7-minute video that I've watched of him, it seems like it's a good signing. Same with Torrance Reed. I mean, again, it looks like it's a very powerful lock, which is awesome to have. Right. So it seems like the engine room for the Arrows is going to be well equipped once again. Plays for Manawatu Turbos. I wonder if there's kind of a Sam Malcolm connection. I'm not sure, but I kind of wonder if there's a bit of a connection there, a bit of a way that connection was helped being made. It seems to be a real big trend across all of MLR, where guys seem to kind of be signing players from similar clubs, and obviously are signing guys that players on their teams know or have played with, right? Which probably makes identifying things easier. So I mean, excited for all three of these guys. Can't wait to see what they do in the blue and white next year. And yeah, I mean, that's I guess yeah, that about sums it up for me.
All right, and finally, we're going to head out west, because the Pacific Pride have announced their 2022 and 23 team lists and their schedule as well. So, the Pacific Pride has been fundamental in the development of a lot of players recently. They even list a few guys that have made to MLI, including Quinn Nawali, Tyler Rowland, Josh Thiel, Brock Webster as well. It's I was just looking at the Pacific Pride full squad list. The second name down is Sam Reimer. He's obviously had MLR experience from playing with the Arrows, and he's also had under-20s experience, especially in the summer tournament just gone. It looks like as well the Pacific Pride will be competing in 2 competitions, the regional rounds and the league round. They will have 6 rounds total of the regional round, which are against UBC, Trinity Western, and UVic, and with like home and away fixtures for those. And then they'll have the 11-game league round, which includes teams such as Burnaby Lake, Seattle RFC, Capilano RFC, playing games at Starlight Stadium, and obviously at their opposition's grounds throughout the tournament. And those competitions have already begun. The first game was against UBC, and try as I might, I have yet to be able to find a result for Pride versus UBC that's happened this weekend. It's very strange. But anyway, those competitions run from September through to April 1st. And, great opportunity for a lot of young guys to, impress the head coach, Phil Mack, and, get the attention of any of the Rugby Canada management, as well as any MLR teams as well. So all the best, lads, and, good luck with your seasons, and we look forward to seeing what you can produce.
The one slightly unfortunate thing about this announcement, though, and the schedule, is it definitely confirms what James O'Neill was saying a few episodes back, that the Coastal Cup doesn't seem to be a thing anymore.
At least they have a full schedule lined up for them, going through to October. Then as soon as the regional round finishes, the league round begins. So, no rest for the best. I guess there is obviously time off in December and January. It's just too cold. It's either too cold or too wet. I've never been to BC. I can't really determine, but I'm guessing both at that point. And then competition.
Great.
Competition brings up again in February and then finishes on April 1st. But just in time for the November internationals, and hopefully Canada's men's team will be playing in that, and maybe some guys have put their hand up to be selected. Maybe a few MLR teams are keeping their eyes out, especially for those regional round games or the first few rounds of the league round. But we shall have to wait and see. We're already getting too early in talking about it. Saying about talking about getting the Arrows 15 too soon. We've already got a list of names which could potentially be playing in the MLR next year. So, what is a guy to do when there's very little rugby on, especially in North America? However, there is rugby.
I was going to say there's a lot. All the other leagues are about to start back up.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, as in North America, not so much, but in the rest of the world, we've definitely got you covered when it comes to the rugby going on. The Rugby Championships, games 5 and 6, will be happening this weekend and next weekend, and you can watch that on tsn.ca and the TSN app. And we missed it last week. The first round of the English Premiership has begun again, and we're going on to the second round this weekend, but also the United Rugby Championship between Ireland, Wales, Scotland, Italy, and South Africa also returns, and both of those competitions are available on Sportsnet. So, maybe not North America, but definitely the rest of the world. There's definitely some rugby to watch. Well, I believe that is the end of this episode of the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode and you would like to listen to more, you can do so on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Anchor FM. And if you want to see more of our beautiful faces, including exclusive footage with Arrows players and coaches that we have interviewed after MLR games, you can do so on our YouTube channel, which is at the Rouge Rugby. In fact, you can find us across many social media platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Again, at the Rouge Rugby. Derek, where can the fine people find you on social media?
At Brissette the Jet across all social media platforms.
And you can find me across all social media platforms at Hardman, spelled H4RDMAN. Well, Derek, thank you for joining me as we've been discussing my long-winded plans of how to fix the Rugby World Cup Sevens. And thank you all for joining us for this episode of the Rouge Rugby Podcast. We hope you can join us again next time.